Hey there, Paul from Trusted House Painter. In my 20 years of painting, a lot of people have asked me if it's possible to paint over stain. And the simple answer is yes, you can paint over stain. However, in this video, I'm going to try and make it short and succinct to let you know the different types of stain and how to approach the prep and the priming and the painting of each stain. And I've got a couple tips that will probably help you out. So the first idea is that not all stains are the same. So what I'm going to introduce you to is what stains are. There's what they call transparent stains, semi-transparent stains, and solid stains. Solid stains are very much like a paint in the aspect that they have a full color and they sometimes look like a paint. However, they are a stain. So clear stains, on the other hand, or transparent stains, I should say, are stains that you apply to wood to get a certain look. And then once you have that nice amber or reddish tone or black tone or brown tone or whatever tone you want of that wood, you then apply like a polyurethane coating on top of it. And that polyurethane coating acts as a protection to protect against the stain. So those are the two primary different types of stain. Stain that you would use as a protective coating that has pigment, or stain that has no pigment or very little pigment, in which you need a protective coating in order to coat it. I mention this because it's very important to understand these two parts, because if you wanted to paint over, say, a deck that was stained, semi-transparent or solid stain, you can absolutely paint over a deck, or cedar siding, cedar shingles, a fence that was once stained. You can absolutely paint over that kind of stain, and it's a pretty straightforward process, and I'll talk about it in a second. However, if you're ever dealing with furniture or cabinets and you want to paint that, the process might be a little bit more delicate, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about. So I'm just going to show you this quickly. As I mentioned before, we have transparent stains right here. This is what you want when you want to get the color of the wood brought out. And then up top you have semi-transparent stains. And semi-transparent stains generally have a little bit more pigment in it. They take away from the wood grain, so you can't see the wood grain that much. However, it still preserves a little bit of the wood. And then you have what they call solid stains. Solid stains, as I mentioned, generally look like paint. They have solid pigment, but they act like a stain in that they absorb into the actual wood. So here's a perfect example of what a clear stain would look like on furniture. They used a light honey finish or a light cedar finish, and then they top coated it with a shiny clear coat like a Helmsman Minwax or a Varathane in order to get that to preserve the longevity of that stain. So if you are planning on working on kitchen cabinets or that kind of furniture or any kind of interior work, you might want to consider putting a polyurethane coating over top of your paint, just in case if you want to give it a little bit of shine and you want to give that durability. However, it's not always necessary, and I'll show you in 1 minute, because we're going to go inside my RV and I'm going to show you how I painted my kitchen cabinets and all the drawers and everything, and you're going to love it. So the first thing you want to remember is it exterior or interior? If it's exterior and just painting over a siding, fence, or like, for example, this deck here that I've done, it's all cedar and it's all solid stain. Now, I could go ahead and paint this, and the process would be very similar to the interior, and that is, one, you have to clean it. You have to clean it thoroughly, make sure there's no mildew, no mold, no dirt, no grime. Second thing, you need to give it a good sand. If there's any loose and flaking paint, then you've got to sand that down and prepare the surface ready for paint. Now, depending on whether it's an acrylic or it's an oil stain, it does matter. And so what I would recommend is always putting a primer. You can get an acrylic primer or an oil-based primer. Oil-based primers tend to hold a little bit better. They tend to be a little bit more resilient, a little bit more bulletproof, and they do work. Once you prime the wood, then you can paint the wood with 2 coats, whether that's your siding, whether that's your cedar shakes, whether that's your fence, whether that's your deck. You can go ahead and paint it. So that's the general process for painting over top of stain on exterior. You can use a sprayer, roller, brush. You can use a lot of different applicators. But generally speaking, you can paint over stain. Now, my tip for exterior is you can either wash, sand, prime, and then 2 coat with an acrylic latex. Or what you can do, you can just use a solid stain. So if you had a semi-transparent stain deck or a clear stain siding or cedar shakes, instead of going to the whole conversion of using the primer and paint, you can actually just use a solid stain over top of that stain, and it saves you the primer coat, saves you pretty much 50% more time, because you're putting down a solid stain, and a solid stain has it acts as a paint and primer in one, in a way, so you can save a lot of time. However, the finish may not look the same, so you can either primer and paint, or you can top coat it with a solid stain and it looks very similar to a paint. Now, the only difference with interior work is that if you're going to be painting kitchen cabinets or furniture like that, you're going to want to be a little bit more delicate in how you prepare it, because it already is in a nice finish. And what you want to do is you want to get rid of that glossy look. You won't find any flaking paint, but what you want to do is you want to clean it first and foremost, wipe it down with a degreaser with a cleaner, and then you want to get a light 120, 150 grit sandpaper and basically sand it down so that you eliminate any kind of shine from that. As you can see, there's a little bit of shine on the side, there's a little bit of shine on the top. You really want to get rid of that shine so that it's a dull sheen. And then what you want to do is you want to apply a nice primer, and then you want to apply 2 coats of paint. Now, depending on the color, you might need 3 coats, 4 coats of paint. Doesn't really matter. It's up to you and how you want that finished look. You can spray it, you can roll it with a little mohair roller or a thin nap, and that'll come clean. And like I said, so if it's furniture or any kind of kitchen cabinets, you could always top coat it with a clear coating, like a polyurethane coating, that will help preserve and keep it a little bit more durable and give it that nice furniture look. However, we're going to take a walk inside my RV right now, and I'm going to show you what I did. My wife wanted the RV to be painted. Keep in mind, everything in here was the same as that stand, so let's take a look. So here we are. This is my RV, how we kind of renovated it. You can see all the cabinet doors here, all these cabinet doors, all these drawers back here, all these drawers. Everything in here looked like those steps. And those steps have a nice sheen to them, and they've been coated, and my wife really did not like that. So we went ahead and we painted everything in this RV. Now, it took a lot of time. The process was wiping clean everything, taking the doors off because we wanted to get new hardware for it, sanding both sides of the doors, priming both sides of the doors, and then coating it probably 3 or 4 times with a white, because it really had to cover. The whites don't cover very well. Anyways, we didn't bother going with polyurethane coating over our cabinets. We used emerald enamel, which is an enamel paint, and it worked really, really good. And it's just little, if it ever gets scuffed up, or we just touch it up, and if it gets dirty, we just wipe it clean. So this video has been, hopefully helps you understand the differences between the stains, and if you want a cupboard style finish coating, or whether you're just going to be painting the exterior of your house. The prep is pretty much the same. However, interior staining or interior painting like this takes a little bit more work, and it's a little bit more detailed because you're dealing with that polyurethane coating that you have to sand down first and then put an oil primer, and then how many coats you want. And if you want to be like us, you can leave the paint coating with a nice satin finish, or you can go ahead and coat it with the polyurethane coating. However, the only last tip I'll give you is that once you coat it with a polyurethane coating, you can't just simply touch it up with the paint, as you're now touching up the polyurethane coating. So there's a lot of pros and cons with this. It is quite a deep conversation. I know this has been about 10 minutes. However, speak to your local painting professionals at your paint stores or your local painter, and ask him what his advice, because truly every project is slightly different, and your project is probably unique. So again, it's Paul from Trusted House Painter. I hope this has been an educational moment for you about stains. And yes, you can paint over stain. Take care.